Another year, a new model released. The 2026 Skidoos were just released today. It's always exciting to see what's new from Polaris and Skidoo this time of year. Kind of watch the live stream, get all excited. Watch everybody get disappointed on the internet. Because it seems to be that every year the manufacturers, maybe more specifically even Skidoo, they like to hype up the release. I would think that Skidoo made it seem like something big was coming this year, right? I kind of know better than to expect something big every year. It's just not really feasible to have something groundbreaking release every year. So it's more so just subtle changes here and there every year, and something big comes once in a while. This year, I think they've done a pretty good job of some good upgrades across the deep snow line. Now, you trail guys, you kind of get left behind this year, but I think you're used to that. More so just bold new graphics for you guys. It also looks like there's some improvements to the utility line, the Expeditions, and now I thought it would be a cool idea to pick up an Expedition or maybe even a Lynx Commander or something like that to have like as a backcountry recovery sled and do some sled recoveries here and there. Something different than our usual content, just kind of mix it up, and I think it'd be pretty fun, honestly. But let's kind of jump into it. I'm going to just give you guys a quick rundown. There's some hour-long videos out there you can watch if you want to, but we're just going to cover the basics on the deep snow line. Mostly the Summit X versus the Summit Expert, because that's where the main upgrades are this year. Now, the Summit X has dropped 14 pounds and the Summit Expert has dropped only 8. Now, 8 and 14 pounds might not sound like that much to you guys, but it's actually quite a lot for a manufacturer to go and drop that much weight. In the aftermarket world, it's pretty easy to go and do that. You know, you could just buy a can and lose 10 pounds right there. But the manufacturer can't do that. So, I think that's a pretty substantial weight loss, more so for the X, and that might even be why I'm leaning a little bit more towards the X this year. Let's talk about what's new from back to front though. Starting at the rear, they have finally gone away with the rear torsion springs, but that is only on the Summit X. The Expert doesn't get that, and I'm not really sure why. Maybe they'll give it to the Expert next year, just kind of share some love. And spread it out over the years instead of just upgrading everything all at once. Or maybe because the Summit X still has T-Motion, so it's a different design than the Expert would be, so they just kind of focused on the X for this year. And I'd say most people don't like that the X has T-Motion, but I'm curious to see maybe it works better in this setup. They've also dropped some weight out of the skid by changing the ice scratchers, the front track shock spring, and they've removed the adjustable limber strap, which maybe some people would have a gripe with, but personally, I almost never touch my adjustable limber strap, so I couldn't care less about that. It stays in Agile 99% of the time, and realistically, it would probably be better if it was more so kind of in between Agile and Precise settings from the factory anyway. For my style of riding. When it's in Precise, it's too much ski pressure. When it's in Agile, it's almost too much wheelie. So I think somewhere in the middle, if that's what they've done, will be a great compromise. They've also dropped 2 pounds out of the track, which that's rotating mass. So that's going to be a huge difference there. And hopefully that doesn't come at the expense of durability. Now, I think 2 pounds on a 50-pound track isn't really going to sacrifice the durability. You could just take little bits here and there that don't sacrifice that and still drop some weight. And all those upgrades were only for the Summit X. Now, if we go back to talking about the X and the Expert, they've kind of both got the mod sled treatment this year, and they chopped up to 14 inches out of the heat exchanger. I went and chopped 25 inches out of mine for my mod sled, so it's not quite the same game, but it should make a pretty substantial difference for ice buildup and weight. Definitely, I think there's still going to be some ice buildup around the back footrests up to the tunnel because the heat exchanger does still go out past that, but it should help overall. You know, it's not really practical for them to go and cut 25 inches off the heat exchanger and give that to the general public because it overheats quite easy, my mod sled. So I think people will get pretty pissed off if that's what they had to ride up the hard icy trails. But I do think they could improve that heat exchanger still more in the future by cutting that back even more and making it maybe similar to what Polaris is. With shortening the heat exchanger, they've also shortened the overall length of the tunnel by 2.4 inches, I believe. So now it's kind of like a super Expert. Cutting all this weight from the back of the tunnel and the skid I think is going to make a pretty substantial difference in how the sled handles. It's going to pop out of the snow a lot easier and a lot faster. Moving to the front of the snowmobile, again, big differences from the X to the Expert this year is the Expert is going to have a 32-inch front end. Now, people are going to say, whoa, that's pretty narrow, that's too narrow. That's what people said about the 34-inch ski stance when that first came out. Lucy? Yeah, I know, bad man. Now, I think trail riding the 32-inch ski stance might kind of suck, but the new stiffer sway bar should kind of help with that. And we don't really care about the trail ride up the mountain. We're looking forward to getting up the mountain and off the trail anyway. So if we're going to have an improved ride quality there, I'm all for it. And I have heard that the 32-inch stance does work well. I still would like to see Ski-Doo put in a 15-inch wide track in the future and narrow up that tunnel to match, because there's no point in putting a narrower track in if you're not going to narrow up that tunnel as well. But if they did that, paired with the 32-inch ski stance, I think that'd be the ultimate weapon. Along with the 32-inch ski stance, Ski-Doo's also gone to a 2-link steering to improve bump steer. Now, maybe they just had to change that because of that 32-inch stance, but either way, it sounds like it's an upgrade. But I'm not sure why they didn't add it to the X. Again, maybe just to spread out that over multiple years, or maybe it weighs more, so they didn't want to put it in the X. Not really sure. It does still get some love up front this year, though. It gets some forged upper arms, which look pretty cool, as well as drop a half a pound overall. The 850 non-turbo also has a 1 pound lighter airbox this year. Now they've also dropped 1.5 pounds out of the S module this year, which is kind of like the bulkhead, the cast aluminum piece in the front of the snowmobile, which I'm a little leery about. I think most people would consider Ski-Doo to have kind of a weak bulkhead. We do see quite a few of them broken here and there. They say they've actually improved the strength of that by going to a new casting method. I guess time will tell. As for the Freeride, it got the shorter tunnel as well. I don't believe it got the shortened heat exchanger though, which is kind of interesting. As for chassis upgrades, I think that's about it. Something I'm almost most excited about is I think we finally are going to have buddy tracking without being in cell service, without having to connect your phone. It's just going to be there and work. It looks like it's got a 1.6 kilometer or 1 mile range. Then something great about that I learned as well is you're going to be able to upgrade your existing touchscreen display to have that buddy tracking feature, which is great. So it won't just be the brand new snowmobiles that have that buddy tracking. I believe you'll just have to buy the new GPS module and update your screen. A couple things I'm curious on is how long is your location going to stay active when the screen is shut off, or how long is the screen going to stay on once your snowmobile is shut off? And then something interesting I noticed while watching the reveal was on screen it said join or create group to distinguish riders. So it looks like you'll be able to see any BRP vehicle on the map, which I think is pretty interesting. That could come in handy for search and rescue scenarios, or who knows what else. Overall, I think Ski-Doo's done a pretty good job for the new models with some great upgrades, as well as some really cool color options. I think we're going to see a lot of green next year on the snow. And then unsurprisingly, it looks like the price is taking another considerable jump, but at least it looks like we're going to have an optional 4th year warranty, which is pretty great. I think that's great for the community overall for selling used sleds. Just gives buyers peace of mind for if something catastrophic like a motor does blow up. Because let's be real, this is snowmobiling and snowmobiles blow up. But I guess it comes to that time where I have to pick a snowmobile I am going to order or would order for 2026. And if you couldn't tell already, I'm kind of leaning more towards the Summit X. It just kind of fits my current riding style with the whole lightweight thing. I used to kind of think the whole lightweight thing was a bit of a gimmick, but it kind of just allows you to ride longer and ride harder. So light is always right. But then we also have to choose turbo or non-turbo. And again, I kind of leaning more towards the non-turbo this year, just because we haven't really had stellar winters where I felt like I needed a turbo every day. And it's just lightweight again. So I haven't ordered a non-turbo since the Ski-Doo turbos have come out, which will be pretty interesting, but I'll always have a turbo in the shop, so we'll be all right. And I kind of just want to show you guys what a non-turbo is capable of since we haven't had one. And this is all hypothetical, of course, but we would also get the 10.25-inch display since it has that buddy tracking. But let me know in the comments whether you go X or Expert, or maybe even just go with the Freeride, and if you go turbo or non-turbo. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you on the next one.